Poetic peeps and gentle persons, in-betweeners and nonconformers, genders all and genders equal. Welcome to Eat the Storms, the poetry podcast. My name is Damien B Donnelly. This is episode 16, season 8, coming to you on platforms like Spotify, Apple, Google, Breaker, Podbean, Player FM, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Castbox, Podcast Addicts, iTunes, and now including Amazon Music and even YouTube. If you are joining us on the 1st of June when this episode actually dropped, then welcome to a new month. Here's hoping for sunshine and sangria, but of course we're a podcast, so you can tune in whenever you want, whether you're on the beach, in the bed, or zooming down the motorway en route to Les Vacances. And speaking of the vacations, we have flights to make today. Not willing to settle down just here in Dublin in Ireland, we are heading to meet an Indo-Canadian writer in Dubai, 2 Pennsylvanian writers in the United States, an American poet living in Canada, a hitchhiker who's already hit 17 countries and is currently settled in Tokyo in Japan, and then closer to home we have a stopover in Scotland and then welcome a first-timer to Eat the Storms here in Ireland. So that's the next hour and 20 minutes. If you are ready, I suggest we begin. I imagine you already have a drink in hand and a sweet treat in the other, unless, of course, you're driving. My name is Damien B Donnelly. This is Eat the Storms, and I hope you enjoy the show. And for my first guest today, we are taking that trip to Dubai to meet a multidisciplinarian artist, an Indo-Canadian writer who's appeared in places like Ghost City Review, Tripton Poetry Journal and Torchlight. Her reporting has been featured in places like Time Out, Communicate, Hype magazine. She was a Tupelo 3030 poet and an artist in residence at the Bueno Creative Hub. She founded Kerosene Digital, an arts and culture news platform and content house, and this year she will graduate from her MFA in writing at Vermont's College of Fine Arts. I am so pleased to welcome, first time to Eat the Storms, Caroline Fernandez.
A crow's nest. What passes through the mind of a bird that cannot take flight as it hops on one foot, camouflaged by the brush? Does it fear shadows like mine that cross its path? Does it want for care, a morsel of bread, and a puddle to dip its beak into? I remember the time as a child, alone on a balcony many stories up, eating a piece of bread as a crow swooped down to snatch my food from me. As a child I mourned the loss of what was my own. Should I have left this wounded bird a plate of bread and berries? Should I have brought it out to the light, somewhere safe, away from vultures, where it could heal and grow again, practice flying and searching, without fear of being preyed upon, until it could soar again? A few years later I found myself on the side of a road alone, my bicycle in the gutter, grocery bags scattered, holding a fractured wrist under a setting sun. Later I lay side by side with my grandmother, her thick arms stretched across me as she slept, her scarf tight, containing the swelling. I was in and out of a haze of sleep, shivering, throbbing, not knowing why I ached. As I stood near the injured crow, its wing hanging from a single hollow bone, cowering in the shade, away from the burning sun, I looked around the broken bird, wondering if it could be held, when I heard the wings of a larger crow flapping from above. Tamer. It was the year 2007 and I helped him build his first Facebook profile, choosing a meaningless photo of a donkey from my folders. Later he lay in my bed, his hair falling over his eyes wide open as he tried and tried, his kisses fumbling. If I Google Tamer's name now, I see a photo of a vase filled with white lilies and roses. There's a photo of a tree amidst a brooding orange sunset, with the line, "Thinking of you," written across the field below. There is a photo of a forest in overexposed green and tall trees looming above. And then there's my picture, search results with my name and his. I cannot remember how he looks. There's no Facebook update, no message to inform all 11 of us. Friends, no news from family on his well-being, just the same photo he asked me to choose for him of a donkey I saw on a trip I don't remember to a place I can't name from a time when I knew Tamer. Where is Tamer now? I want to tell him. There's so much I still don't know. The new girl. He looked at me longer than he should have. Late night Skype messages to the new girl. Said he noticed my hard work, how hard I worked at walking in the door in my heels. He watched me walk across the room each day. I'm pleasing to his eyes, the way silk hugs my curves for him. Tell me what you think of me, he asked while his wife slept. Let me show you, I said, wading knee-deep into his cesspool mind, grinding my heels till his skull cracked, adjusting my hair in the mirror, dug my nails into his membranes, tried not to stain my clothes, and plucked out his eyes one by one. Self-portrait of a campfire. I'm surrounded by a circle of bodies. They gather, their flesh drawing heat from one another, while I breathe into them. I crackle, I spit, I announce my presence. My strength precedes me. They called me here to console them, like a healing salve to wash away what wants to be forgotten. As I burn, I grow, larger on my own. They stare into me, unable to look away, and when they try to unsee me, ghost flames stare back. They don't come too close. I'm at my finest when kept at a distance. I waver, I sway, my silhouette saunters on the faces around me, like crescent-shaped masks and asymmetrical eclipses. They need me, though only after night falls. Between guitar strings and voices, bellowing laughter, the pouring of spirits and the clinking of steel cups. When they are done with me, after their feet tire, their bellies are satiated and their wounds are soothed. Then into the open sky emanates all that is meant to be lost and left, and I will trickle off, reduced to mere remnants of what we both recall. Immigrants. We traded making sandcastles in the desert for after-school hours watching Fresh Prince. We traded weekends watching my parents play cards at the local community club for weekends watching my parents lift boxes over time at the warehouse. We traded food stalls below my grandmother's building for Taco Bell highway stops between visits to clients. We traded a shiny taupe Mercedes sedan for a sky blue 7-seater Dodge Caravan rust bucket that carted us across borders for 8-hour and 12-hour drives as we slept and woke between songs on the radio, Archie comics, my parents sipping coffee through the night, taking turns in shifts at the steering wheel. Eventually we'd arrive at a Holiday Inn or travel lodge where the front desk person would happen not to notice the side door creaking open. How many of us entered after check-in, how many of us were sharing a room, how 3 children could walk so quietly, sometimes with their grandparents. Often there were still chili cheese burritos left, soggy at the bottom of a paper bag. But we were kids. We didn't mind if we had to peel dried paper off a moist tortilla. We were just happy they hadn't gone bad.
And from Caroline in Dubai, we are zooming across the world to the United States and settling down in Pennsylvania for the first of our Pennsylvanian poets on the podcast today, who is the author of an astonishing 26 books of poetry, including most recently In the Word Chat, published by Last Word Press, Moving with Every, published by Flowstone Press, and Many Thing, published by Unlikely Books. He's appeared in places like Alien Buddha Press, Man's Swirl, Moss Piglet and Inspired, and every Wednesday he writes and records current event poems for KBOO Evening News. I'm delighted to welcome to the podcast for the first time Dan Raphael.
Hi, I'm Dan Raphael. These poems are from Moving with Every, which was published by Flowstone Press in 2020. Suburbia. Owl on a tightrope, 6 grosbeaks for dinner. How a seagull thrown properly will always come back. No matter how strong you are, you can't lift a crow. When the eagle entered the bar, everything got quiet, even the starlings at the pool table. This isn't the right town to be a ground squirrel. Grouse have nothing to hide, just act that way. Last year, everyone dressed like chickadees. This year, we're all robins. The waxwing needed spare change to keep migrating. No matter what station I turn to, all I hear is red-winged blackbirds. He might claim to be a golden eye, but I know a loon when I see one. I live across the street from a schoolyard and watch other people's dogs, waiting for the DNA test. Could I count the black dogs in the field if they stopped moving? Or is it just 2 or 3 dogs displaying simultaneously all the places they've been and will be there, chasing the ball of the sun, playing tug-of-war with a hank of river? The crows near the homeless camp know me, breaking open a plastic bag of rain-soaked bagels and pastry so more could eat as more fly in. And what of our oak, tormented by squirrels, strip-searched, gnawed, then expected to provide shelter in a hole or crotch? Who else is living there, not counting the moss machines, the insect processes? But I don't mean bees, more functional and intelligent than we could ever, no matter how we choose to miniaturize, to export natural functions to devices we can never fix, only upgrade. Is there a mammal whose skin no one ever wore? A bird whose feathers didn't decorate some body? The tree my door came from, the ice that became my window. When a dog's tail is wagging, where are his teeth? When I think it's night but my windows are covered with crows, as flesh is a veil, as clothes announce our sadness at having so little fur and no feathers at all, just these thick bones to withstand small collisions and keep us chained to the earth we seldom rise from, seldom run across full speed, trailing slobber, dust, and fleas of random memory. I drive a mile to the thirsty dog. The bartender asks if I'm a service animal. Or might I be in season? Standing water. Standing water, kneeling hills, footloose sky, limping river, alley learning to crawl, pirouetting wind, clouds refusing to move. The hills are alive with subdivisions. Many rivers no longer trust gravity or what the fish tell them. Are the birds migrating or trying to escape? When someone abandons a high-mileage cloud in front of my house, when the leafless trees are tipped with moving black blossoms, rain calmed the wind, then moved in with it. And got this title from a motivational poster. dancing like nobody's watching in a constant surveillance world. When all the music's made us deaf, all the dancing and runnings put us on wheels, I find a bass I can't see or hear, my bones metallicized by rust-belt childhood. Bridge cable piano needs at least 12 miles an hour wind to start a rhythm. How many gulls and crows, the black and white keys, chords of brown sparrows, yellow finches, and cardinals no blender can dissolve. The sun's shining, but I couldn't afford my subscription, my prescription. The faucet runs 2 random hours a day with a row of paint chips adjacent to tell me how much I can drink without a rupture. Walls devolving into glass-free windows and unframed doors. As if this patch of abdominal skin can go another day without washing. But when are safe warm hours to sit in the laundromat with exposed muscles and viscera while my skin goes beyond the delicate cycle? Mom's old curlers rise above the city as cell towers, growing and subdividing. Mitotic bubbles of unclaimed and rejected messages rain like jellyfish, with so many offers, invitations, threats, and why do you never answer? That's not a light switch. This only looks like a handgun. Anything can be a lighter, a letter opener, salt and pepper shakers responsible for 3 miracles and 10,000 lunches. When I stop looking at the clock in the sky, my skin breaks out in sunlight. If I don't like how the wind smells, 10 minutes will bring a different food truck. All the cars replaced with teleporters, but old freeway noise tracks maintain the roar that prevents our imagination from flowing out of us so quickly our instruments could choose sides or at least be seriously bruised. We're home. We're hungry 3 ways. The extra bedroom's always busy, as if we live in a silo, a cornucopia where the inventory's in constant flux and filament. In this new green world where all the rainwater goes right to the brewery, I snap open a couple cans to hear, see, and smell the clouds releasing. Clouds looking for a good time, a time they're not subject to or object of. How could the ancients have described marvelous sunsets when they couldn't see blue and the air was pre-industrial? Some visionary Roman turned mad as he saw the Appian Way become the Autobahn, a highway with no exits but plenty of tolls, toll drones scanning your credit line and gene spectrum. As if any scan could tell what I dance like, how high I can jump, how many genera established in the hanging gardens of my lungs, how the only reason my thumbs don't fly south is I need them as spoons. When the music embargoes the outside while focusing my body on the moment, partners in a ritual of earth drums, city bass, eyes flashing brass, finger reeds, heartstrings, off the charts and in the groove, I'll never do these moves again and don't need to. When they cut the power, police the streets, sever my legs, pour recycled aluminum in my ears, I'll dance even more vigorously, intently, unstoppably. No one will get near me. The music only gets louder. Thank you.
And for my next guest, you don't need to fasten your seatbelts just yet, as we're staying in Pennsylvania for their second of our guests from there today. This time an author, poet and photographer with a background in freelance journalism. She uses her poetry as a source of creative expression, and her first collection, called Fractured Lollipop Poems and Brokenness, Healing and Hope, is currently available on Amazon. Her work has appeared in places like Grace Magazine, Pennsylvania Bards, Local Gems Press, Callip Press and The Edge of Humanity Magazine. With a first children's book on the way later this year, I'm delighted to welcome again for the first time to Eat the Storms, all the way from Pennsylvania in the United States. This is Mary Anne Abdo.
Good evening, Damien. My name is Anne Abdo. I'm a poet and author from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I'm going to read you 3 selections from my poetry book. It's titled Fractured Lollipop, Poems of Brokenness, Healing, and Hope. The first poem is titled Instigator. One thought, one word, multiple actions. Anger has a way of destroying someone's soul. Red pieces, the center of your eye, while losing all control. A leather strap holding up trousers became the weapon of crying silence, overreaction to the untidiness of articles of clothing. The dampness surrounding retro avocado green patterned dishes was a set-off. Getting your way, seeing the strap whelp on our skin while paying no mind. Sore point of happiness sitting in a holy box, confessing to the point it became a habit every 7 days, without fully realizing what damage had been done. While one lad tried to leave this earth twice, yet the other lingers for the sake of her mission to be fulfilled in prose. One thing will be understood: trauma and heartbreak linger among the daisy patch. The baird holds a daisy while gleefully running through the stillness of the black coal fields, forever consoling with great compassion the little great blue-eyed wonder, and that is Instigator. The second one I'm going to read is The Journeys We Plan and the Journeys We Seek. We dream about journeys throughout our lives. Some journeys are planned with months of preparation, time, money, and the perfect destination, soaking up what this world has to offer: white sand beaches, mountains of no return, lush green forests, deserts painted against the sky, cliffs of white chalk. The journeys we make are those of expectations, but unplanned journeys are the heart's true desire, to trek upon this world without a need, a dime, finding new places in unexpected realms near our own backyard, meditation by the river, walking amongst the butterfly parade, sitting high on top of the world, watching trees form intricate branch lace patterns, deer gracefully walking with their fawns. We have a choice, either taking a rush pace or just letting the journey unburden us, in a dimension where time is non-existent, and that is journeys we plan and the journeys we seek. The third poem is titled Retirement is Not So Golden. Homelessness has risen against those who have worked all their lives, for they say the golden years are grand. When some have chosen between their heart medication or their heat, for they say the golden years are grand. When someone has no choice but to sell their priceless family artifacts just to survive, for they say the golden years are grand. When they are forced to move from place to place they called home, only to live in cars and trucks, with their bulldog in the front seat, hoping to find another permanent shelter. For they say the golden years are grand. In a country where wealth is predominantly obscene, and yet disparity is more predominant for many, for the golden years are not so grand, and that is retirement is not so golden. I'm going to read one more from my book, Trenches of Life. Sitting in the octagon shade, constructed of bricks, glass, and steel, gazing out into the hill section, admiring my 45 minutes of freedom, grasping for the real air without that regulation mask, taking in the beauty of those carved out manicure lawns and perfectly placed trees, pleasing to the eye all year long, a longing to end the madness of this technological world, stuck behind many desks and running onto every floor, to really sit beneath cherry and red maple trees upon the old park bench without paying attention to human manufactured time. Oh, mercy me, all these trees and no time to comprehend silence, and that is treasured trenches of life. Thank you very much for listening, and have a good evening.
And from the United States, we are coming back across the Atlantic Ocean and settling down here in Ireland for a first timer to Eat the Storms, and I think possibly the first time that my next guest has actually broadcast his poetry. He has a background as a director and copywriter for Ignition, which was an independent agency and established back in 1999, but unfortunately, like so many others, ceased trading during COVID. Since then, he's found time to take writing more seriously, whether that is poems, short stories, songs, or even the occasional joke. But leaving the jokes aside, today he is here for poetry, and I'm delighted to welcome him to the podcast for the very first time. So sit back and relax for first time company of David O Sullivan.
Hi everyone, I'm David O Sullivan, and my thanks to Damien for inviting me onto his fantastic Eat the Storms podcast to read 4 of my poems for you. I hope you enjoy them. This first poem is dedicated to a young friend of mine who sadly we lost before Christmas. This poem is called My Irish Goodbye for Dara. The tide is away out now, and I am all at sea. The strand is still in sight, but I yearn for it no more. A voice, gentle and calm, laps against me like a wave. It calls me ashore, but I am a stowaway. A dolphin breaches beside me. He knows who I am, and I he. He is part of the water, as I am too. We swim together for a time. I am of his pod, his family. He shows me where the rocks are, but it's the undertow that guides me. The tide has the better of me now, as storm petrels circle unbroken white horses. My bearing and course are true as a dreadnought, as I hear the harbour boys' last farewell clang. From a distant lighthouse, I hear joyous voices. Haul away, boys, haul away, they sing all at once. So close to home, I wave goodbye and take my leave of the beauty and promise of an undreamt dream. This next poem is an acknowledgement, I suppose, of the wonderful works of Oscar Wilde and the many plays and novels and poems that he left behind for us. But it's also possibly an insight into who he was as a decent person and the tragedy and the flawed aspects of his life. So this is called O Scar. Dorian despised the Queensberry Rule, an order to brutalise the broken. His life's intentions being so earnest and devoted to beauty, decay, and truth. He avowed nothing of more importance than time served reading in toilful solitude, to banish the tragedy of the grey and the brilliance of the dull. Salome seduced with scorn and danced for the price of a prophet, singing the refrain of a ballad for his happy prince Bosie. Humility freed him as a knight in jail to sing a sorrowful lament, uplifted on the wind or mere perfumed breeze from a lady's scented fan, wafting towards an ideal husband and the haven of repute Amidst his perils, a devoted friend, a woman of no importance, lay like a sphinx outside the ruin of the poor harlot's house, to safeguard O scar of a starlit night from all the gathered gutter snipes. This third poem touches on the damage we can do to relationships because of pride and arrogance and conceit. So this poem is called Matadors. I was an open hearth, fueled for so long, till the time when a man was forged by a withered hand and jagged words, to place iron on skin, just to heal and to scar. The righteous at war, who thrust at shadows and roar, that in feigning and falling we are, we too, just matadors. Awakened in a sleeping heart, sunken eyes cannot bear to see the truce, both at a loss, the fire absolved by mercy's bitter chill. And now whose ever writ runs red between the lines, this battle little wagers any score, for still we are, we too, just matadors. This fourth and final poem is about the extremes of emotion, such as hate, and how it burrows into our thoughts, bringing nothing but unhappiness and discord to our lives. It's a kind of civil war emotion. It's kind of parasitic in nature, and we struggle to resist the kind of possession that it has over us in certain situations. So this is hate. Who goes there? It is I. I know that I, the one that seeks its likeness, and a tooth besides. Come away from what darkens, that I might see your face. Never. You poor fool. You will never see me, only in others. But you will feel me. I will stricken your soul as a fever crisis, and make your mind run lame. But what if I can give love? You give. Your present is your past, your most delicious gift. It sustains each stagnant act, so let me gorge myself a while. Why must you act so? Act. I am the act of faith in you. I swear to be with you until you are a spent force. My faith in you is surety of your weakness, that vassaled succor that garrisons me. You are the prisoner of your conscience, committed to memory. I will snuff out the fire of your love, save for the haggard timbers of your gutted mansion, for I am the cuckoo of your affection, and you the host at my table. Silence! I have the measure of your source. Vanity daubs your hideous form. You raged too long. I know who you are, and that you cannot live with love, the stowaway in my heart. So begone, cur, away with haste to kiss the curled lip, and take your weighty words of spoil with you. Who goes there? It is I, the one who seeks its likeness.
And now it's time to welcome two returning guests to the podcast, both of them from the United States, but neither of them is now living there. My first guest is originally from Montana and received music degrees in Minnesota and New Jersey, where she later worked in book publishing, but she now lives in Ontario, Canada. Her poems, photos and prose have been featured in numerous journals like Ruminate, Madrigal, Poetry South, Eastern Iowa Review and Burning Wood Literary Review. She is the author of 2 chapbooks, Serving the Sorrowing World with Joy and A Man of Integrity. And over on the blog post for today's episode, you can find out how to subscribe to her Substack newsletter called Finding the Colours. But for now, settle down in the company of Meg Freer.
I'm thrilled to be on the program again, here from Ontario, Canada. I'm a classical musician and piano teacher, as well as a poet and editor. I'm grateful to the editors of The Daughters Grimoire and One Art Poetry Journal who have published or will publish the poems I'll read. Most of them are commentaries on the human condition in an urban setting, but I'll start with a slightly surreal poem in a lighter mood. Pitch Perfect Dreams. Summer ease, think breeze. I'll simply notice, but not name it. Quick as a splinter, I slip a ball of tangerine light between my ribs, inhale pale yellow from the edges of sunset to fill constricted spaces below an unseen floorboard, an opportunity to pause and reflect on smooth flowing water that spins out of control, chaos that kisses with purpose. The path to lonely. The leaves so dry in July they crinkle in the wind as if it's October. The world's trees are on the move, pines and spruce going north, oaks and maples going west. A dead tree sticks up like a 2-pronged fork. I take my daily trip through the revolving door of aches and pains, and from several blocks away hear distressed shouting, "Oh, oh, oh, oh!" But it turns out to be a dog barking. In the countryside, I grasp a fistful of campfire, and words drift away as smoke, a few letters still visible in the ashes, perhaps from shopping lists or love notes. Some machine in a boat welding workshop emits a repeating, low, 2-note hum. Mm-hmm. 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 The novel I refer to in this next poem is by Matthew Haig. Infinite Possibilities. Speared to a tree trunk in the park with a large pair of scissors, a novel, The Midnight Library. Shredded pajama pants, t-shirts, boxer shorts hang from branches and litter the grass. Perhaps someone chose to attack a book and sleepwear instead of another person, attack a tale of despair and death of a woman between worlds and the library that holds alternate stories of her own life. My neighbor brings a garbage bag for the book and clothes. I pocket the scissors. Passers-by may think the tree fed a woodpecker. What should he do? Written with care in black marker, 2 lines on the picnic table by the river. Hi, Michael. I miss you. All caps for miss. An arrow points to that second line for extra emphasis. A 3rd line sketched more quickly with a period at the end. Go home, Mom. No capital M for Mom. I wish the 2 geese swimming by would stop their comical honks one after the other like an old-fashioned bicycle horn. This situation seems serious. Only Michael and his mom can shake out the details of what prompted him to leave and not come back. I can't do anything except hope Michael sees the message and knows what he should do. Watcher. Winter evenings, she watches snow-covered rooftops, the factory's white exterior, and even the limestone walls of the historic church turn lavender briefly at sunset. Distorted nighttime sleep allows her to see stranger things from her high apartment windows. A man who stands on a bus stop bench rocks it back and forth while he entwines willow branches into a large wreath for his head. She keeps an eye on the tiny house that sold, but that no one moved into, watches for squatters. Mostly she hopes for better sleep, or at least that someday she will see something useful, like the man wanted for assaulting a woman in the nearby park, or find out who does things like pull up all the garlic in the community garden at night. Offerings. She lights a cigarette as she exits the liquor store. He calls to her as she walks toward her BMW. She responds, "Back in a sec," opens the car door and returns with a second cigarette. Perhaps the only thing they have in common, this woman in a short black dress and this man slumped against the wall, the building his backbone at that moment. A cigarette, the best the woman can offer, besides her presence. We can always tell a longer story. Long dead aloe and jade plants remain on a windowsill like intricately carved sculptures, more interesting than the dullness of frosted window film upstairs. The building's immune system doesn't seem to be working well. I have not seen the occupant for weeks, have not smelled the cannabis when I walk by, although certain lights stay on around the clock. Skipped town for a while, perhaps, but no one knows where to look or who to call. I collect the tomatoes at least before the vines fall over from the weight. An abundance of milkweed pods and kiss-me-over-the-garden gate flowers dangle with green and magenta exuberance over the barren driveway. Those plants thrive. They don't care if anyone lives there or not. I'll finish with this poem in memory of a writer friend who died a few months ago. Small, weird things. Breath combs the sides of my body, clean lines of limbs between panes of glass. Ginger and fig consort at the tip of my tongue. I enter a secret room through the hole in my pants pocket, discover bowls of silver coins. Mountains lie down in submission at my feet. Did I dream such things? Or did you send these images from the other side? We wish you could see our celebration of your life. Then you enter the room in the body of a squirrel, right on cue, after a mention of small weird things. And we all cheer to know you made it. Next morning at the bakery, a sign reads, "Yesterday, $3. Yes, I will take yesterday for $3 if it means you will return again one more time. You always managed to right yourself after falls of many kinds, but even a squirrel will have one last fall." Thank you. It's been a treat to share my work with you.
And from one American in Canada to another American hitchhiker who, as I said in the introduction, has already hit 17 countries and 35 US states. Last time he was with us, he was living in Mexico, and now he's living in Tokyo in Japan. He is the author of the poetry book Schematics and Assemblies for the Cosmic Heart, which was shortlisted for the Faulkner Wisdom Poetry Prize, and his latest novel Alice was selected for the Initiative Fiction Book Club, and a screen adaptation of his novel Mr. Robert's Bones made the second round at the Austin Film Festival. Today, reading 3 poems for us in the podcast, one of which, in his own words, is something a little different. I am so delighted to welcome back a regular stormer here at Eat the Storms. This is Gary Gautier.
Hey Damien, it's great to be back on Eat the Storms for another season. Today I have an intro poem, then a longer poem, and then something a little different to finish. This first poem is Prelude. Falling through the ice cream clouds, broke like a poet broke, beaten, bound like a foreign word in colloquial acquiescence. Falling through the poetics of space, I am a Blakean hero. I drink the world's guilt and express it as energy. Allen Ginsberg's 27 cents, I am nothing. Lucifer, stretching his wings before the fall, I am Pharmakos. I drink the world's energy and express it as guilt. I am the world's cipher. I consort with the dead and amuse the living. Posture, breath, eyes, teeth, loneliness. I speak in many voices, the sublime and the abject, none of which are to be trusted. Humor me. Okay, the longer poem is called The First Ring, and it's set in Washington, D.C., the mall. We jump almost falling from the cab in the snow near the Lincoln Memorial. It is winter. The sun will set early. This means something, though we do not know what that something is. Snow falls gently, powdering your body, such stuff as dreams are made on. We stumble into the presence of the Korean War Memorial, something about the eyes of a statue. Death, you say, and I dream of yesterday when our eyes met over champagne and oatmeal stout. You had bought me dinner and I wanted to kiss you, but I didn't. The sun begins to set but freezes behind Lincoln. The building glows in the sun and snow falling gently. You stand in front of the statue, and then you are the glow, and I am the eyes of the statue. Your hand ruffles the centuries of human history. The centuries have not gone into the past. They are all here at this moment, as all the rings of a tree are here, hidden until the tree falls, but present all the while. Indeed, the rings are the tree. I can feel the monuments behind me crumbling backward in time, or rather inward, until there is nothing but the first ring. Let it be here, I say, in the first ring that we meet. Then I see you in the first ring, emerging as great constellations emerge in splendid and cosmic and physical aspect. So this is what it is like, I say, the first ring. But here we cannot meet, something falling. It is we who fall. The reflecting pool under Lincoln's stony gaze is frozen. We can walk on it. Though I am a stranger and you are familiar of this place, you have never walked on the reflecting pool. Tomorrow you would nap while I walked down 14th to U Street. Something about Nelson Mandela was playing at the Lincoln Theater. I would pick up food to go so we could stay in. Now we climb the western edge of the Washington Monument, from which vantage we see White House, Jefferson, Lincoln, and the great dome of the Capitol. Our vantage must break some transcendent covenant. The sky shatters and we rush beneath the fractured constellations to the obelisk. Thickening bands of snow slice us as we stretch against the white stone of the monument. Last night, before the snow, Before the eyes, the glow, something falling, we saw the tempest on Church Street. I think of us now adrift in our snow globe, blizzard, and of Prospero. Now all my charms are o'erthrown, and what strength I have's my own. A hug to bind us against the elements, and we step away from the stone, lost for a moment, as if in the Rockies, where we lived long ago. We follow a jogger's footprints down 15th Street in a halo of powdered sugar. In the corner bar of the old Ebbett Grill, I press my hot cheek to your cold. Oh, if only the language had enough words, would each instance of human contact have its own name. In the first ring, each relationship has its own interface, its own name. But in our frailty, we must be friends, lovers, abstractions without a proper name. Only a simple truth. Human touch is the most powerful form of yoga. I had come 2 days before, and we stayed up all night. I rubbed your feet and tried to clear knots by opening a pathway from your upper back through the arms and out of the hands and fingers. The movement across the curve of the neck and the hollow before the shoulder left an impression of delicate bones under soft skin, but also strong muscles. There was no nonsense in the muscles. Now I see the airport blue lights. I'm not sad when we hug at the gate, but I am suddenly sad a moment later, when you are gone and the eye no longer meets eye, the touch, a ring receding into the core. It is not we who are falling. It is I. Imagination transforms reality, but does not break the fall. Okay, I'll change the pace with this last poem. It's called Muse and Beloved. There we were in the midst of life, maybe at the bowling alley or the grocery or smelling the oven-hot fudge at that place in the Riverwalk. And you said, hey, why don't you write me a poem or something? So I wrote all night, tearing my hair and spilling my seed, and I presented the poem to you. It had everything. It had passion and power and sexual innuendo. It had speed and mystery and hairpin turns. It had 7 types of ambiguity. It had wit. It had slenderness. It had furniture. So I presented this poem to you over a breakfast of egg sardou, cheese, grits, fresh squeezed orange juice, waffles, a Denver omelet, white toast, wheat toast, English muffins, pancakes with boysenberry syrup. What the fuck are boysenberries? Some shit they made up at IHOP, but we weren't at IHOP. Hell, I don't even know if we were at breakfast. I made that part up, okay? But anyway, you finally read it, and you said, God damn, don't do me any favors. And I said, wait, I said. It was only a poem, I said. It was nothing. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks again, Damien. It's thanks to people like you willing to do the work that the rest of us out here can thrive, so it does not go unnoticed. We owe you. If I ever make it to Dublin, it will be my treat. Adios, all.
And for my final guest on the podcast today, we are circling the world again and settling down in Scotland, this time for a neurodivergent poet and writer who's published 3 children's books and written for many publications, both online and in print. Her poetry has been widely anthologised, and most recently she was featured in Witch magazine. Currently working on a first pamphlet under the guidance of poet Laurie Bulger, it is an absolute pleasure to welcome to the podcast for the first time our final poet of this episode. This is Rochelle Hanslow.
Hello everyone, I'm Rochelle Hanslow. I'm very happy and blessed to have this opportunity to share some of my poetry with you today. I'd like to thank Damien for having me as part of Eat the Storms, and a big thanks to anyone who is listening to me on this episode. Today I'm going to read some poems split across two pamphlets that I have collated that haven't as of yet been published, and so they are tentatively titled I Am the Audacity and Caged Birds and Tower Moments. The first poem I'm going to read for you today is called House Share. It's one of many of my poems that are a bit fizzy and strange, so I hope you enjoy. House Share. The taps in the bathroom are dripping again. I wonder if the spiders under the bath think they are on holiday, somewhere warm and quiet away from Scottish rain, complaining to the reception desk about a leak in their hotel. The blackbirds in their rafters have a lot to say about things, living rent-free and eating my sleep. They sync their tapping with the dripping, an old bouncy ball they found in the gutter. Last week they tried to take out a squirrel with a frisbee. I was washing the dog at the time. The leftover popcorn in the birdhouse must have made them salty. Note to self, give the squirrel a name. I might suggest Ralph or Arthur. The next poem I'm reading is after my wonderful mentor and friend, poet Laurie Bolger, who also aftered her version George to Morgan Parker. This is called Ashley. Is living a teenage dream in his 30s, got under my skin but was aiming between my thighs, told me he loved me, wanted me, to choose him but then walked away, then came back for 3 more rounds. Tells his girlfriend he loves her but tells me he can't afford the rent alone. Asks me to run away with him, calls her princess and tells me he hates her cats. Messages me I miss you, wished we'd met 10 years ago, tells me I wouldn't have liked him back then. Takes her to crazy golf and fake smiles for selfies with a heart filter. Life always has drama. Told me he doesn't like fat girls while reading we should all be feminists. Tells me their sex life is vanilla, wants one night with me. It's truly for forever. Tells me his dad knows all about me. Treats the ones he loves like jewellery. Still wears the hoodie I bought him while cradling his newborn. Has trouble controlling his internal emotional thermostat. Hot, cold, hot, burning, cold, freezing, shoo out the penguins. Played with my heart like a hacky sack. Promised I'd always mean the world to him. Tried to keep his business unfinished, but couldn't let me go. A lot of my work explores femininity and things our bodies hold through memory, movies, animals, and of course, satire. The next 2 poems come with a trigger warning as they deal with miscarriage, so please do use your discernment and be gentle with yourself if this affects you. Little Lily Rebel. My internet keeps telling me it's unstable. He tells me he's attached to the length of his hair more than people. I tell him about a memo block my granny bought me once. It looked more like a jewellery box made of sturdy cardboard. Monet's water lilies printed all over it. I used to love opening the lid and then letting it fall, ruffling the small white squares of paper. I tell him about the person who once told me that they could tell a lot about me for liking Monet. From far away you're okay, up close you're just a mess. I tell him about my own body paint dots that started yesterday, that have now begun to stain my thighs, beginning and end of life, on small square tissues. I'm expected to flush, wash it down with plenty of fluids, easy swallow paracetamol, pamphlets to read, in my own time. A body of text. I love how baggy jumpers are a safe place and a prison all in one. I know my body doesn't mean to be out of sync with my soul. I love the feeling of having my ears cleaned and collarbone stroked. I love that my arms are legs for my toothbrush as it dances elaborately in my mouth. I don't have any tonsils. I know my eyes are made of numbers and symbols on a piece of paper in a filing cabinet. I swapped Glynis for Juliana to sit on my face and bring me clarity. I know my hips and ribs are as restless as my mind and never want to stay where they are. I love to watch the needles hammer ink into my skin, like fingers on piano keys, making a patchwork of memories. I know my teeth feel at home chewing my lips. I love the release around my rib cage as I take off my bra and how glad I am I never wear socks. I know my womb has housed 3 souls and only birthed 2. The next poem is called ADH Me. I am a neurodivergent poet. I have autism and ADHD and was only diagnosed at 34. My husband and my sons are also neurodivergent. I wrote this one to try and put down what it's like to be in my head, especially in the early hours when I can't get to sleep. ADH Me. 4 letters out of 26 make me part of societal politics. Women can't need a dopamine fix. Be a good little girl. Here comes perfection. Mother wraps around me, chocolate smeared face, wobbly toothed, pulling invisible heartstrings, enraging my nerves and watching me pee. Wife's circulation cut off, a string of paper statements, to-do lists, a tourniquet for the soul. She used to be a beautiful, flying umbrella, tripping over dog toys like my responsibilities. White rabbit, the one who's running late, sometimes a premature alarm clock, but I am not a trend. I'm up at 3:45 a.m. thinking of what I'm not again. Why didn't I say that when I was 13? Conversations. I know every part by heart. The walls need painted impulsivity to try and stop the crawling. Ginger sunset and willow lament, pole dance on my paintbrush, lap dance for me daily. Here comes irritability. I can hear the plug sockets. What the fuck is wrong with me? Interior screaming louder. Vibrations vital to shake off this skin. If only I were a snake. Darkness in every corner, room and mind. At least the dog loves me. Jukebox in my brain, music, regrets, thoughts and... What did I just say? What was I gonna do? Fold the laundry? No, not today. I'll stare on it on the table until Thursday. I'm going to finish off with a poem called Death Has Brought Us to Hagley Premier Inn, and this is about preparing for a family funeral we attended last year. Before I begin, I'd like to take the opportunity to give my gratitude once again to Damien and say thank you for listening. Death has brought us to Hagley Premier Inn. The hotel thanks us for staying with a packet of Foxy's biscuits. I watch the TV dancing in the bathroom mirror as I test myself to see if I can read the notice on the door backwards. I stare at our outfits hanging in the wardrobe, an unkindness of ravens sitting on a silver birch. I borrowed a handbag from my mum because I prefer backpacks. I bought a new toothbrush so I didn't need to charge the electric one at home. I think about the kind of clean it will give me. The spotted hyenas upstairs and the forks rubbing against drinking glasses didn't get the memo about the minutes of silence. I tell my uterus to fuck off and get a grip of itself. My shoes tell me when skin gets aggravated and raw, it gets to show in the form of a pus-filled bubble. I tell them that there is no angry way to say bubble.
And before I sign off, I'm going to leave you with one of my own poems. And again, as I just recently published a new collection with Tourist Press called Back From Away, I thought, why not read a poem from that collection? But before I do, a huge shout out to Susan Richardson, a regular here at Eat the Storms, and she actually joined me at the beginning of this season for one of our Behind the Storms chat. Last Monday, Susan's own podcast, 1,000 Shades of Green, which is available on Spotify, featured Susan reading poems from my new collection Back From Away. So a huge shout out and thank you to Susan. And please, after you listen here, please ensure that you check out her wonderful podcast, 1,000 Shades of Green. And also, just before I move on, I'd like to say a huge shout out to the Munster Express and Lee Murphy, who reviewed Back From Away this week in their newspaper. What a week it has been. I also started a new job at the Irish Writers Centre, so I am literally floating on a high right now. And speaking of floating on heights, the next poem is set on a mountain in South Korea that I hiked up a few years ago when I was on holiday from life in Paris, and midway through the hike we came across a retreat and we were welcomed in by the monk, and lunch was prepared for us and coffee ground. So this is called Climbing Up Bukhasan instead of just going around it. I believe you had a headscarf tied around shaved skull when you looked across the low table on that high hill where Buddha was carved into a cliff that will linger longer than the rest of us. A patterned headscarf, perhaps, just above the concentration of your hands turning the lever of a coffee grinder on your knee. Though honestly, I don't think about your head or its skull or the coloured pattern of your scarf as I think of you, while scrambling my way through the parts of Paris I cannot break down into smaller, more soluble pieces. But I do recall how your eyes shone like the star in the iris I painted once, while trying to understand the strokes of Van Gogh. Before I realised that the brush carries more onto the canvas than just a shot of colour. I recall the iris of your eyes. Back in Paris, where Les Etoiles is just a metro station, where millions of cars go round and round and round. Poetic peeps and gentle persons, in-betweeners and non-conformers, genders all and genders equal. We've reached the end of another episode of Eat the Storms, the poetry podcast. Coming to you on platforms like Spotify, Apple, Google, Breaker, Podbean, Player FM, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Castbox, Podcast Addicts, iTunes, Amazon Music and YouTube. And take a breath. My name is Damien B Donnelly. I've been your host and producer, and thank you so much for tuning in, for supporting and for sharing and for shouting about us and for ensuring that we come back again and again and again every single week. Although, in saying that, we're coming to the end of season 8, but fear not. Season 9 will kick off at the end of August, beginning of September, and I'm already taking names for that guest list. And speaking of guests, I'd like to give a shout out to my wonderful guests on the show today, who have been Rochelle Hanslow, Gary Gautier, Meg Freer, David O Sullivan, Mary Anne Abdo, Dan Raphael, and in Dubai, Caroline Fernandez. For details on all of my guests, head on over to the website eatthestorms.com, click on the podcast section called Listen to the Podcast, and there you'll find a blog post for every episode with all of their details, including bios, photos and social media handles, so you can be their most fabulous fans, buy their collections and even sign up to their Substack newsletters. And again, as I do each time I talk about the website, over there you can find out about the Storms Journal, our journal of poetry, prose and visual arts that will be opening submissions for issue 4 next month, and details will be coming very soon onto the website and across all our social media handles, so keep your eyes out. This will be a special episode. It will have a theme, and if you want to find out what kind of poetry, prose and visual arts we like, then grab yourself a copy of either issue 1, issue 2 or issue 3, currently available on the website. But for now, that's it. I'll be back with you again next week at the same time on whatever platform you want to choose. But of course, it's a podcast, so time is relative to where you want and when you want us. So until then, keep listening, keep loving, keep laughing, and of course, as always, stay